Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 237. Mount Longxiu, Divine Wood. Unlike when he was in the Peach Blossom Spring, this time he was no longer involved. He was just a bystander and no one in the memory could see him. He walked up to the cavalryman, lowered his head and looked at the young man who was crying while touching the corpse. A blue vein in his forehead kept twitching and throbbing. He felt a chill ran down his spine and goosebumps rose all over his body. Seeing this scene again, he knew very well what kind of role the young man played in the end in Linen City. He betrayed Shizun, the young master of the city. In order to bring his adoptive father back to life, he did not hesitate to sacrifice the lives of the entire city. Xiao Man, the dead can't be brought back to life. Don't be too sad. We can't stay here for long. Let's go back quickly. No. No. I'm not going anywhere. I want my father. He went to find food for me, that's why he died. It's my fault. Dad. Dad. Mo Ran stared at the young man. Who was this person? Was he Master Huizhui's father? Or, his eyes fell on Xiao Man's left hand. There was a black mole the size of a grain of rice between the thumb and index finger of his left hand. He suddenly thought of Master Huizhui's hand. It was also in the same position. He also had a mole in the exact same place. Mo Ran was shocked. At this time, the distant voice slowly sounded on his ears again. I was born in Linen City. I lost my parents when I was very young and was adopted by the groom of the city governor. When I was 14 years old, Linen City suffered the calamity of a heavenly rift. There was no food at home, not even a grain of rice. I was hungry, so my adoptive father took the risk to go out of the city to find food for me. He didn't come back that evening. His heart skipped a beat. Huizhui, was he really Xiao Man from 200 years ago? Huizhui said softly, when I came out of the city and found him, he had been killed by evil spirits. His intestines were overflowing and his eyes were pecked out by crows. I will never forget that scene for the rest of my life. Mo Ran's ears were buzzing. He followed Xiao Man into the city. At that time, from the barrier rift in Linen City, the Ghost King threatened everyone to hand over Shizun. He had seen all these things once before, but when he saw them again, he couldn't help but felt miserable and sad at the thought that the people's hearts could be this sinister. He saw that on the night of the incident, Xiao Man begged everyone not to dismember the body of his foster father and to allow him to wait for Shizun to return to see if there was a way to keep his foster father's corpse intact. I beg you, just wait a little longer. The young master will be back soon. I'll definitely keep an eye on his corpse. If he became a fierce corpse, I'll definitely stop him. I beg you. You won't be able to stop him if he revives. You need to know what's more important. No. Please, please don't dismember him. Let my father's corpse be for a while. In the torrential rain, Xiao Man kept kneeling and kowtowing. His head and face were covered with blood, but he still couldn't stop it. His father's body was violently pulled out of his arms and dragged out of the government office by the steward. They surrounded the body, which they were expecting to turn into a fierce corpse at any time. Xiao Man's sight was blocked. After a while, he saw the blood flowing out from under the feet of the crowd, which was instantly washed into light pink by the heavy rain. I was selfish at that time. I only felt disheartened and full of resentment towards everyone, so I betrayed Linen and offered myself to be a subordinate of the Ghost King. I wanted to take revenge on them. As he narrated, Mo Ran once again saw the scene that had once shaken him to the core. The mother ate her own child's flesh. The townspeople betrayed their hero. Shizun knelt on the stone steps in front of the Chenghuang temple, bent into the mud and cried silently. He saw the mob escorting Shizun to the temple. Like vultures eating rotten meat, they surrounded him in a mass number. In order to prolong their lives, they didn't hesitate to sacrifice Shizun's life. He saw Shizun take out his heart along with his spiritual core and hand them to the scattered people who were crying for him. He told them to leave the city as soon as possible and not to stay any longer. Xiao Man also saw all of this. Later on, I went to the ghost realm. Many times whenever I was alone, I would think of young Master Chu's miserable situation. I would think of how he had willingly given his own heart and spiritual core. I would think of how well he had treated all of us in the past. Every time I thought of this, I feel uneasy and I can't escape the condemnation in my heart. Huizhui paused. His voice became extremely pained. I am a traitor. Mo Ran couldn't tell what he felt in his heart at that time. Sometimes, good and evil were just a matter of a thought. Some people actually regretted it the moment the knife was stabbed, but so what? There was no way to go back. Not long after, I heard that Shizun's soul entered the netherworld. He was a good man. Although his cultivation didn't reach the peak and he couldn't become an immortal, it was enough for him to enter the reincarnation cycle smoothly. He would be rich in the next life and enjoy a peaceful life. But he didn't leave. The souls of his child and his wife were torn apart because of the catastrophe that year. He went to the netherworld and begged, willing to use his 3 lives of good fortune in exchange for the release of his wife and child. But in the end, it still didn't work out well. Mo Ran saw Huizhui running around the ghost realm. He was ashamed and couldn't face Shizun, so he carefully avoided Shizun. However, he tried his best to pull on the ghost officers and ask, what about the wife and child? What did Yan Luo say about them? Can you think of a way to piece together their souls and let them enter the reincarnation cycle? Is there a way at all? I beg you. I beg you to help young Master Shizun. Think of a way, we can discuss the price. A ghost soldier laughed at him. I've heard of your glorious deeds. Didn't you help the 9th king to kill Shizun's family? Why did you suddenly change your mind when you came to the netherworld? Are you afraid that Shizun will become a vengeful ghost and come to settle the score with you? Mo Ran followed behind Huizhui, watching him beg and kneel to many people. Perhaps they shouldn't be called people but ghosts. But then most of the time, the nature of people and ghosts was actually the same. Just like what Chu Wanning said before, the soul may change its character, likes and temperament, but its nature would never change during the reincarnation cycle. Huizhui continued to ask around about the reincarnation of Shizun's wife and child, something that the 9th king soon found out. The 9th king had lost one of his eyes when he fought with Shizun. He had long hated Shizun. When he heard that his subordinate Xiao Man was secretly asking about how to help his former benefactor out of guilt, the 9th king couldn't help but be furious. He took back the token that allowed Huizhui to freely travel to and from the ghost realm and ordered him to return to the human world. He also took away Huizhui's eternal life as a ghost soldier. Go back to the world of the living. Once all the yin energy of the netherworld in you dissipates, you will die. After death, you will fall into the infinite hell forever and your soul will never be reincarnated. The 9th king stared at Huizhui with the single eye that could still be used. This is the price you pay for helping your former benefactor. The darkness of the netherworld disappeared. Mo Ran heard the patter of rain. It was spring. The drizzle was soft, moistening the green buds. He saw Huizhui walking in the spring rain with his hair down as a monk. I returned to the human world. At this time, 100 years had already passed in the human world. Although the Ghost King took away my token, the remaining yin energy in my body allowed me to return to the ghost realm at midnight, when the yin energy was at its strongest. However, if I stayed for too long, the energy consumption would be great. In fact, I am still very afraid of death, so I dare not stay in the ghost realm for too long. Only when I really need some clues and help, will I secretly return to the netherworld. Mo Ran listened to his narration and looked at Huizhui, who was walking alone in the bamboo forest. Plum blossoms were lying in the snow in winter and lotus flowers were glistening under the rain in summer. He walked alone, from 10,000 trees to the frosty forest. His hemp shoes got worn out one after another. Huizhui searched everywhere and inquired, hoping to find a little bit of information that could give the mother and son whose souls he destroyed a chance to reincarnate. Huizhui said, I also took this opportunity to redeem some of my sins. Others might not feel anything and only think that Huizhui was being ridiculous, but when Mo Ran heard this, his eyes suddenly became wet. Atonement. Everyone who made a mistake and wanted to repent was like a fish thirsting for water, eager to atone for their sins. He was like this, same as Huizhui. They were not good people. Their hands were dripping with blood and severed heads littered at their feet. How could they atone for their sins? By using the same hands that had once killed people to put life into the pool of merit, could their sins be written off? He hoped that the good and evil of the human world and the blessings for karma could be as simple as this. But he knew that was not the case. I have been in the human world for almost 100 years. Huizhui sighed slowly, in these 100 years, I helped when there was trouble, I saved those I could. I knew that it was useless. No matter how many good deeds I accumulated, I would still go to the infinite hell after death and suffer all kinds of torment. But I just wanted to make myself feel better. I just thought that if the young master was still in the human world, he would definitely worry about people's difficulties, right? In these 100 years, many past events flowed by. He saw Huizhui carrying a blind orphan walking in the mountains. He saw him helping in the fields. He saw Huizhui mending old clothes under a lonely lamp, because he donated all his money to repair the village that was destroyed by evil spirits. Young Master Chu has never been reincarnated. Later on, I plucked a branch of Haitang from the human world. Thinking that this was his and his wife's favorite flower, I became dazed and mustered up the courage to go to the ghost realm to see him once. The result was needless to say. He shut me out and told me not to come back again. In the memory, the thin back of Huizhui was shown, standing in between the streets of the ghost realm. At this moment, his back was already faintly hunched. I didn't dare to bother him, so I never appeared in front of him again. But he didn't throw away that Haitang branch. I thought that he might still like things in the human world. Since this is not available in the netherworld, I asked someone to give it to him. I hoped that his hatred for me would lessen because of this, even if it was just a little bit. Later on, I heard that Madame Chu's soul could be recovered, but it would take some time. However, the 703 Po of the little young Master Chu had already been shattered and no longer exist in heaven and earth. After hearing this news, I felt even more guilty and regretful until one day, I obtained something. Spring moonlit mountain, misty river. Huizhui sat in the cabin of the boat. The sparks of the fishing fire were reflected in the river and also reflected the object in his hand. Mo Ran walked over to take a look. He sat down next to Huizhui. When he got closer, he realized that it was a piece of wood. The wood grew strangely. The branches of other trees had rough bark and fine lines, but this one didn't. It was only the size of a palm. The bark was smooth and delicate, exuding a faint luster. Even in the memory vision, Mo Ran seemed to be able to feel that this piece of wood seemed to be flowing with a kind of delicate fragrance. Flame Emperor's divine wood. Mo Ran suddenly had his eyes wide opened and looked at the piece of broken branch that was flowing with splendor in disbelief. This was the Flame Emperor's divine wood. Legend has it that at the end of the East Sea, where no one has ever reached, there was a sacred tree that grew for thousands of years. Mo Ran had lived 2 lives and roamed the Jianghu for many years. How could he not know about the legend of the Flame Emperor's divine wood? According to legend, it could revive the dead and make flesh grow on bones. That it could be refined into a weapon that was more powerful than a holy weapon. It could even help a mortal ascend, directly escape the suffering of reincarnation and become an immortal forever. Huizhui obviously also knew about these rumors. He said softly, the divine wood has a spirit. If it is refined into a spirit core, it will not only allow one to ascend but would also make one an immortal. I won't have to go to infinite hell. From then on, I will be free. Mo Ran suddenly remembered the rumors about Huizhui. It was said that he rejected the invitation of the heavenly realm and opted to stay in the human world. Could it be that the truth was that he failed to refine the Flame Emperor's divine wood? I really want to take this piece of divine wood for my own use. For a period of time, I even thought that this was the will of the heavens. The heavens took pity on me and forgave me. They didn't want me to fall into hell and suffer, so they let this piece of divine wood come to my hands by chance. In the cabin, Huizhui stroked the piece of divine wood, his eyes flashing with desire and confusion. His expression was so contradictory, just like the voice that echoed in Mo Ran's ears. However, I once read in an ancient book that the Flame Emperor's divine wood is the same as Nuwa's remains. With this piece of divine wood, a living person can be created. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 238. Mount Longxiu, no soul. What? Mo Ran was shocked and took half a step back. If he wasn't an incorporeal person in this scroll of memories, he would have knocked over the fishing basket and net rope beside him. The Flame Emperor's divine wood can create a living person. The Flame Emperor's divine wood, Nuwa's earth, and Fuxi's Gukan were all divine artifacts that were created by the three supremes. Their spiritual powers were extremely pure. It is said that the first batch of immeasurable immortals were created from these divine artifacts. I obtained a piece of Flame Emperor's divine wood. Even if I don't have Sheneng's supernatural power, it's not difficult to create a human. Just like how after the death of Tongtian Grand Preceptor, his mother used the lotus root to reconstruct his body. I finally made up my mind to use this piece of divine wood to carve in the little young Master Chu's appearance. Mo Ran only felt that the world was spinning and his vision was spinning, making him dizzy. Carve into little young Master Chu's. Chu Ian's appearance. Huizhui said, I want to give my benefactor's son back. Mo Ran's throat was extremely dry as if there was something stuck in it. After a long time, he muttered, impossible. In the memory scroll, the evening bell of Wuobei Temple rang and the twilight gathered. The tired birds have also returned to their nests. The monks' robes fluttered in the wind as they passed under the veranda. Master Huizhui sat in the meditation room with the doors and windows tightly shut. Accompanied by the oil lamp and an ancient Buddha statue, he carefully carved little by little. He didn't dare to recklessly carve. Before using the Flame Emperor's divine wood to create a living person, he had carved hundreds and thousands of effigies until they were exactly the same as the Chu Lan in his memory. That night, he finally took out the Flame Emperor's divine wood carefully. After looking at it for a long time, he carefully and meticulously made the first cut. Wood shavings fluttered and fell, scattering into golden powder as it hit the ground. With every stroke, he put in all his effort. With every stroke, he saw the figures of his two old friends. 100 years went by under the carving knife. The old monk buried his head very low, as if his neck had been crushed by sin. I went into seclusion and spent 5 years in the temple before I finally finished carving Chu Lan. Mo Ran stiffly walked towards Huizhui. He watched the monk slowly put down the carving knife. It was the last stroke. Huizhui brushed off the dust. Huizhui trembled as he stroked the face and clothes of the carved boy. He cried and knelt on the ground, kowtowing to the wooden statue. Mo Ran stared blankly at the small statue on the table. The divine wood as the body, Huizhui as the blade. It was a small figure that was of Chu Wanning's childhood appearance. It was currently evening time. The evening bell rang. Only the last bit of the bloody color of the setting sun was left between heaven and earth. It shone through the window lattice towards the table. The evening bell rang throughout the temple. Outside the courtyard, there were monks burning cypress wood and pine leaves. The strong fragrance was tinged with some bitterness and coolness. Night was approaching, and the Buddhist temple was peaceful. "I'll call you Chu Wanning," Huizhui whispered to the wooden statue after the last stroke of the temple bell. He bit the tip of his finger and dripped a drop of blood full of metal spiritual energy. In an instant, the room was filled with brilliant light. Mo Ran's eyelashes trembled in the light as he tried to see everything within the light. But because of his tears and how blinding the light was, he couldn't see anything clearly. When it came to the point where he had to close his eyes, Mo Ran realized. Chu Wanning already learned about this. How much pain must his heart be in? He wasn't really a living being. He had no parents. He was just a piece of dead wood and a drop of blood. He lived for more than 30 years with no knowledge of these things. The sacred wood has a spirit. After I dripped my blood in it, it became a real human with young Master Chu Ian's appearance as I wished. I raised him in the temple and took him as my disciple. Slowly, he grew up and began to ask me about his life and where he came from. Mo Ran saw the young Chu Wanning sitting beside Master Huizhui. He ate candied haws and asked, "Shizun, you always said that you carried me back from the snow. From where did you carry me back?" Huizhui's gaze was cast toward the distant mountain. He was lost in thought for a while. Then, he sighed and said 2 words. "Linen." "So, I'm from Linen." "Yes. But I've never left the temple. I don't know what Linen is like." Chu Wanning seemed a little depressed. "Shizun, I want to go down the mountain and take a look outside. I want to see Linen." The illusory scene gradually faded. Liubei Temple disappeared into the distance. What followed was the brilliant summer scenery of Jiangnan. It was June. The lotus flowers in the lotus pond were delicate and gorgeous. Its fragrance assailed the nose. Chu Wanning, who was a size smaller than Xiaoxi Ni, walked on the bluestone path. Huizhui followed behind him. "Wanning, walk slowly. Be careful not to fall." Chu Wanning turned around with a smile. It was a tender and carefree smile that Mo Ran had never seen before. "All right, I'll wait for you." At that time, Chu Wanning was wearing a small grey monk's robe. His hair was tied into a small bun. There was a lotus leaf on his head. The lotus leaf was still stained with some crystal clear dew, which made Chu Wanning's face look purer and brighter. Huizhui walked to him and held his hand. "All right, you've seen Ziza Lake. Where do you want to go next? Can we go and eat something? Then." Huizhui paused. "Let's go to the city." They entered the city hand in hand. Mo Ran walked beside them. He looked at Chu Wanning, who was holding the lotus leaf above his head. It didn't even reach his knees. He felt pity and sadness in his heart. He stretched out his hand. Although he knew that he couldn't touch the person in the illusion, he still reached out and touched Chu Wanning's head. Unexpectedly, Chu Wanning suddenly stopped in his tracks when Mo Ran touched his head. Huizhui asked kindly, "What's wrong?" Chu Wanning raised his head and looked up. His eyes were as clear as 2 springs under the sun. They fell on Mo Ran. Mo Ran was almost stunned. He could only hear his heart thumping and his blood rushing. He felt that it was incredible, but he secretly looked forward to it. "What's that?" Chu Wanning let go of Huizhui's hand and walked towards Mo Ran. The more Mo Ran looked, the more uncomfortable he felt. He had never seen Chu Wanning so carefree. He couldn't help but bend down and open his arms, wanting to hug him. However, Chu Wanning directly passed through his corporeal figure. Mo Ran was stunned for a moment. He turned around and saw that the child had walked to a dessert shop behind him. He was looking up at the stall owner, who opened the bamboo cover. Smoke rose in spirals, revealing a light pink cake inside. Mo Ran's heart relaxed, but then he felt a trace of disappointment. It was really just a coincidence. He walked over with Huizhui. Seeing that Huizhui was coming, Chu Wanning smiled and said, "Shizun, this pastry looks delicious. Do you want to try it? Can I? Huizhui's expression seemed to be a bit absent-minded. You also like it? Chu Wanning heard him and opened his eyes wide. He asked innocently, who also likes it? Huizhui pursed his lips and said. It's nothing. Shizun just thought of an old friend. He took out his money and bought 3 glutinous rice cakes. He thoughtfully watched Chu Wanning take a bite. The steam rose and blurred the child's face. The past was like a river, rolling by. Huizhui sighed softly and closed his eyes. Suddenly, his sleeve was gently pulled. He lowered his head and saw that the cake was split in half. The red bean paste inside was delicate and soft, exuding heat and the fragrance of the dessert. Shizun, half for me. The big one for Shizun. Why do you give me the big one? The taller you are, the more you eat. Mo Ran watched as Huizhui took the cake and stood by the stall with Chu Wanning, eating the sweets and talking. He was silent for a moment, standing under the bright sunshine of linen, and smiled slightly. It hurt. But he also felt that there was spring water flowing in his heart. He felt that in the face of this Chu Wanning, no one would be able to help but be soft-hearted and like him instantly. He was the most obedient and best child in the world. The flourishing sunshine in front of him faded again. This time, the new scene did not appear immediately. Mo Ran stood in the darkness and Huizhui's empty voice sounded like a ghost in his ears. I stayed with him all day long, teach him to read and write, lecturing him. However, what I am most concerned about was his enchantment. I still haven't forgotten that I created such a child in order to gift him to my benefactor. I planned from the beginning that when Chu Wanning grew up and when his spiritual power and body could bear it, I would take him to the netherworld. Huizhui paused and his voice became deeper. Take him there and meld the remaining broken soul of young Master Chu Lan into his body. Mo Ran. Huizhui said hoarsely continued, at that time, I felt that there was nothing wrong in doing that. After all, what is Chu Wanning? He's not a real living person. He's just a piece of wood, a wooden sculpture. I gave him life and taught him how to conduct himself in this world. But in the end, what flows in his body is not real blood and what's covering his bones were not real flesh. Mo Ran was already brooding. When he heard Huizhui say this, he could not help but shout, no. But what was the use? Huizhui could not hear his indignant disagreement. The monk's voice was still like a whirlpool, dragging Mo Ran into a deeper and more painful spiral. Chu Wanning is not real. He has no life, no soul. No. Why does the sacred wood have no soul? He was alive, he has a soul. He may not be like anyone else but he is certainly someone. Mo Ran howled like a trapped beast in the illusion. Master Huizhui, you raised him, you looked after him every day. Isn't he a living person? How is he different from you and me? But Huizhui was still muttering to himself, as numb as when chanting sutras in front of Buddha. Words that had been tempered thousands of times came out of his mouth. It was unknown whether he was sincerely worshipping Buddha, or just trying to numb the intense pain in his heart. He is a physical body that I carved for Chu Lan. Only when Chu Ian's soul lives in it can Chu Wanning be considered a complete human. Mo Ran felt a chill ran down his spine. He did not know what would happen next, but he felt like he was going crazy. He ran in the darkness, but everywhere was an abyss. There was nowhere to go. He kept muttering, and his muttering turned into a roar, no. 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 You can't destroy him, Huizhui. He has a soul in his body. He is a living person. He knelt down. He was suddenly so scared, even more scared than when the truth of his previous life was revealed. He was suddenly afraid that Huizhui would take Chu Wanning to the netherworld, cut open his chest and merge the spiritual core with Chu Ian's soul. What about the original Chu Wanning? Would the spirit in the Flame Emperor's divine wood leave? Where would he go? Could he pass through the 6th path of reincarnations? Heaven, earth, the sky, the netherworld. There was no place he could go to. No. Huizhui, you can't. Mo Ran stammered, and his lips turned pale. You can't. How could he not have a soul? How could he not be a living person? That child who ran and jumped on the road with a smile on his face. That child who carefully broke open the sweet cake, gave the big piece to his Shizun and ate the small piece himself. He was still so young, but he was more affectionate and righteous than most people. He was not inferior to any life form made of flesh and blood. How could he not be a living person? However, Mo Ran's desperate pleas and cries could not wake Huizhui from his stupor. The century-old knot in Huizhui's heart was here. He felt that he owed Chu Sun's family. He had gone through untold hardships to create such an artificial body. How could he let anything go wrong? As the days passed, Chu Wanning slowly grew up. He was the reincarnated body of Chu Lan. I was 100 times more worried about his life than I was about my own safety. Thus, for so many years, I only brought him to Linen for a few months when he was 5 or 6 years old. Aside from that, we've never took a step out of the boundary of Wuobei Temple. Huizhui sighed and continued, sometimes I wonder if the worldly affairs I showed him were pitifully little. He lived until he was 14 years old, and besides Linen, he had never been anywhere else. From the beginning to the end, he had only seen the serene Wuobei Temple, from autumn to spring. His eyes finally lit up again. It was a moonlit night. Mo Ran first saw Huizhui standing at the door of the meditation room, looking out of the courtyard. He also hurried over. Under the frosty moonlight, he saw the 14-year-old Chu Wanning practicing his sword. Haitang flowers fluttered in the air. The young man in white looked like an immortal under the backdrop of the falling petals and the cold moon. Huizhui's voice still lingered in his ears, along with the sharp sound of the sword breaking through the air. But I also feel that it's not necessarily a bad thing to see less. There are too many sufferings in the world. If this spirit of the sacred tree is destined to only live for a short 10 years and then be replaced by Chu Lan, then wasn't letting him live an easy, honest, and magnanimous life be more merciful? The sword dance ended. The flower petals fell. Chu Wanning put the long sword behind his arm and raised 2 fingers on his other hand, concentrating. He calmed his slightly rapid breathing and raised his head. When he saw Huizhui looking at him, he smiled. The evening breeze brushed the hair on his forehead, making him felt itchy. He gently blew on it, trying to blow away the strands of hair that kept tickling his face. But it was obviously useless, so in the end, he could only use his hand to brush it away. He looked back at Huizhui with his dark phoenix eyes. That was also the direction where Mo Ran was standing. Shizun. Not bad. Huizhui nodded. Come here, I'll test the progress of your spiritual core. Chu Wanning walked over without hesitation. He pulled open his snow-white sleeve and stretched out his hand to Huizhui. After checking it, Huizhui said, it's very strong, but it's still a little unstable. Practice more. Before winter, you should be able to achieve great success. Chu Wanning smiled. Thank you, Shizun. When he said this, Mo Ran didn't know if it was an illusion, but he seemed to see Huizhui's shoulders tremble slightly. However, in the end, Huizhui didn't say anything, didn't express anything, and didn't change anything. He turned around and went into the house. Mo Ran stood in the same place. He didn't look at Huizhui in the house anymore. He looked at Chu Wanning with extreme longing, urgency, and possessiveness. He didn't know when he would disappear. This Chu Wanning was so innocent, pure, and even gentle. How could this kind of person not have a soul? His gaze fell and he inadvertently caught a glimpse of Chu Wanning's chest rising and falling under his pure white robes. Mo Ran suddenly thought of something. He suddenly felt as if he was struck by lightning. It was as if a huge rock had been dropped on his chest as thousands of waves surged. No, no. He took a step back. But what could he do? His memories had already reached out with their claws and grabbed at his organs. He remembered. Chu Wanning had a scar on his chest. His heart had been cut open before. Mo Ran trembled. The Chu Wanning in front of him was dancing with a sword under the moonlight, stepping on fallen flower petals. Looking so handsome. But he felt as if a bucket of ice had been dropped into his stomach. He couldn't help but shudder. His chest had been cut open before. So, did Huizhui really do it in the end? Had he really brought Chu Wanning to the netherworld and merged the fragments of Chu Ian's soul into Chu Wanning's body? Was the original Chu Wanning long gone? Then he hugged his head. He curled up on the ground. He trembled, not daring to think about it anymore. It hurt. His heart hurt so much. He would rather be the one whose heart was dug out. He would rather be the one whose original spirit soul was stripped away. Chu Wanning. He was so good. Why did he have to suffer so much? In the end, he was judged as not a real living person and was treated as a lifeless shell by his creator to carry another life. Then who was his Shizun? Was he Chu Lan or Chu Wanning? Mo Ran felt like he was going crazy. His head hurt. He felt dizzy and nauseous. He didn't know how long he had been sitting in the same spot. Then, the sky darkened and the meditation room and the flowering trees disappeared. Chu Wanning also faded away. Huizhui's voice slowly flowed in the darkness. He narrated, when Chu Wanning was 14 years old, the time has finally come. I plan to bring him to the netherworld in another year to merge him with the soul of young Master Chu Lan. End chapter.